This is our third video on uh, cases involving victims who aren't cooperative or who don't want to testify. In other videos, we talked about the fact that the victim doesn't really have any say in what happens with the case once it's filed. And then in another video, we talked about how the state can prove its case if the victim isn't willing or cooperative. Um, in this video, I'm going to talk about just a couple of issues that come up in most of those cases. And one of those has to do with whether or not somebody's really going to come in and testify. And the truth is that in most situations, uh, even if somebody doesn't want to come in and testify, even if the victim's unwilling or uncooperative, they're probably going to come in and testify. And there are a number of reasons for that. The obvious one is that the state can subpoena them and force them to come into court. And if they fail to do so, they can end up spending time in jail themselves. The other part of that is that while you can't force somebody to say something, um, you do have uh, the benefit generally of them having made a statement to somebody else. In most cases, it's usually some kind of written statement because the police will get a written statement from the person when the case is filed or the charges are filed. So the situation is that if you come into court and you want to say something different, you're going to be confronted with that prior statement that you made. And then the third part of that is that if you don't want to go along with what you said before, um, you can face criminal problems yourself, and the state's going to point that out to you. One problem you can face if you're going to insist that you made it up or that you made a false statement is you can face a charge of making a false statement to an officer, um, which is an offense in and of itself. The more serious offense is if you come into court and the state determines that you're testifying falsely, then they can file perjury charges on you. And those are serious charges whenever they're made in an actual court proceeding, because then it becomes more aggravated than simply filing a false report or making a false statement to a police officer. So all of those things are discussed and disclosed, and the bottom line is that if you file a charge, if you report an incident, you're probably going to be brought into court and you're probably going to have to end up testifying. And if you don't, then you could face charges of your own.